Hello YouTube, and welcome to this tutorial on how to cache data within Dynamics CRM plugins and custom workflow activities. This video will talk through some of the benefits and drawbacks of caching data, as well as show an actual example and code you can use on your projects. So let's get started with the benefits. The main benefit of caching data in your code is to improve performance. This is achieved by only retrieving the data the first time it is needed and then keeping a copy of the data in memory. This is instead of getting it from CRM every time the plugin executes. Now, although you won't see an improvement on the first execution of your plugin, every subsequent execution should be quicker. This also has the added benefit of reducing the number of calls being made to CRM, which reduces the load on the system, giving more resources to other tasks, for example, the user interface or other pieces of code. One downside of caching data is that if the data changes in CRM, then it won't be picked up in your plugin until the app pool recycles and the cache is reset. This typically happens every 20 minutes, but it is entirely dependent on your configuration. For this reason, it is important to only cache slow-moving data, for example, reference data like countries or people's usernames. Another potential drawback is that the cache is server-specific. This means if you have multiple front or back-end servers, or you're using Dynamics 365, then each server will be maintaining its own cache. Now, this isn't necessarily a problem unless you're needing to update a value in the cache as part of your code, for example, maintaining a sequence number. For this very reason, you should never try and build something like custom auto-numbering using this cache approach, as you will encounter problems with duplicates and data not synchronizing. I'll be doing another video on custom auto-numbering, which will show a different way of tackling this problem. So hopefully by now you've decided that your code is suitable for caching, so let's have a look at an example. So here I have a really simple plugin which, when triggered, will get the domain name of the user who triggered it and set a field on a record. Now, I understand that you can do this using a workflow, but I wanted to keep the example really simple just to show the concept. So what this code does is it gets the record from the input parameters here, it gets the user ID of the user who triggered the plugin from the plugin execution context, it then performs a query against CRM to get the domain name of the user, and then we're setting our custom field here to whatever the domain name of the user was. So this code is a great example of where caching can reduce the number of calls to CRM as a user's details are fairly static. So what we're going to do is cache user information in a separate class using a pattern called a singleton. Now, this is a very common pattern, and a full description and guide can be found at the MSDN link in the description below, but basically ensures that only one instance of a class exists at any given time, and this makes it perfect for a cache. So to create our user cache, what we're going to do is create a new class called user cache here, and we're going to add it into our project. Within this class, you can see I've already gone ahead and set up our singleton pattern. This consists of a private variable here, which is set to static. This maintains our local copy of our instance of this particular class. We then got a private constructor, which prevents any other piece of code from creating a new instance of this class. And then we've got our public variable here called instance, which whenever it's got by another piece of code, we'll check to see if an instance already exists, and if it doesn't, it will create a new one. Otherwise, it will return the instance, and then you can access any piece of code. As well as the singleton pattern, we're going to need somewhere to store our user records. So what I've done here is I've created a concurrent dictionary, which is exactly the same as a normal dictionary, except it handles multiple pieces of code accessing it at the same time in a much better way. This is really useful if you have two plugins actually executing at the same time, so you've got two users doing the same action. What it allows is for both pieces of code to access the dictionary and put items into it without getting a duplicate key or race conditions occurring in your code. So this is going to be our store of our users. So the last thing we need in this class is actually a way to access this user cache, and I've gone ahead and created this getUser function here. This takes in the ID of the user we want to get, as well as the organization service, so that we can talk to CRM. And this piece of code is really simple. We go into our dictionary and we see if our user ID already exists. If it does, we simply return the user and we're done. If the user isn't already in our cache, then we go off and perform exactly the same call to CRM that we had before, except once we have this user, we then call this try add function, which is very similar to the add function of a normal dictionary, except this one, if another piece of code has already come through here and added the same user in some kind of race condition, then it will just gracefully fail and return the user anyway. So the last thing we need to do here is actually go back to our plugin, and we're going to comment out our previous call to CRM and then replace it with a call to our cache. So in this case, we're doing usercache.instance to get the current instance within our code, and then we're calling the getUser function that we set up before, and we're passing in the user ID and the organization service. So that's actually it. That's our cache implemented within our plugin, and we can use this same cache in multiple plugins if we need to. But let's say for this particular example, if we had a user hitting this code, say 100 times, then the previous number of calls to CRM would have been 100. Now with this new cache implemented, we've reduced that number of calls down to just 1. And of course, this cache will recycle every 20 minutes or whenever your app pool is set to recycle. But you can see that it's going to cause a big improvement on your code. So I'll be leaving a link to the example solution in the description as a reference if you want to copy it. And if you have any further questions, then please leave a comment. If you found this video useful, then please leave a like. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.